Hey everyone, this is Zach at FF Chalupa Batman here with Triple Play Fantasy Beyond the Analyst series. Today I am joined by Ryan McDowell. He is the Chief Strategy Officer of Dynasty League Football, host of the DLF podcast, Locked On Dynasty podcast, and Commission Impossible podcast. Welcome, Ryan. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Zach. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to chat with you. I love these kind of shows. They're so much fun to do and to listen to as well.
We appreciate having you on. So for those of you, if this is your first time listening, we are not going to be talking about fantasy football takes today. We got plenty of time for that in the offseason. We're here to get to know Ryan. We're going beyond the analyst. So this is all about Ryan. We're going to have some fun asking you some questions. So just to get started right away, you have 3 children.
Yep.
You're a teacher. You host 3 podcasts, not including anything you guest on. You do countless more things for DLF. So I got to know, what are your tips for time management?
Oh man. It's tough. It certainly is tough. I feel like my phone is always glued to my hand, whether it's school stuff or fantasy football stuff or family stuff, obviously. I don't know that I manage my time well because I'm kind of hopping from one thing to the other. So I don't know if I could give some advice, or I don't know if if my path is one you should follow necessarily, because I feel like I'm always on the go, always doing something. I need a little bit more downtime. The off season should be good for that. But the way things have gone this off season, the NFL doesn't take any downtime, so we can't either. But really just always on the go. I mean, I found even when I started playing fantasy and playing Dynasty before I was doing any writing or podcasting, I was always the most active one in my league, sending trade offers, and that kind of transferred, I guess, to me as a content creator. Just try to stay active, produce as much content, written or pods, as possible. And that's really it.
No, that's awesome. And now, do you find that you have to, I guess, sometimes take a step back to avoid that burnout, since you do have so much on your plate, or have you kind of been able to navigate those waters since you've been doing this for so long?
Yeah, I don't feel like I don't think I really feel burnout too much when it comes to fantasy. I mean, it's more of trying to keep priorities in order. I will catch myself saying no to something the kids want to do because I'm writing an article or doing whatever. And then it's like, what am I really doing here? Nobody is going to notice if this article doesn't get written or if this podcast goes out late or whatever. So just kind of a reminder to keep those priorities in order is something I need myself.
No, that makes sense. And I think it's important in this space. A lot of people are excited to be in the space, and there's a lot of people that are grinding out there, putting a lot of content, but
Yep.
It is important to remember. I mean, for some, this is a full-time job. For others, it's not. It might be a hobby, but it's important to kind of keep it in perspective. It is a game. It hopefully is, fun for everybody. But yeah, I think perspective is a big deal that we sometimes forget.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people are surprised to hear that I'm a teacher sometimes, that I have a full-time job beyond fantasy football. And I mean, to me, that's a compliment. I obviously try to balance those and of course spend a lot of time on both of them. But to hear that people feel like I'm producing full-time level content, that's, that feels good, of course.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you've mentioned before that you never really thought about doing podcasts back in the day, and you were very nervous when you first started, and you even still get a little nervous now, even though, I mean, you've done hundreds. I mean, you could be in the thousands maybe at this point. But how do you manage your nerves?
Yeah, I do still get nervous for sure. I don't know. I guess a little bit of it just has to do with whoever you're on the show with. And of course, if that's Dan or Matt on the DLF podcast, if it's Scott Fish on Commission Possible, if it's Matt Williamson on Locked On, I mean, at this point, of course, I'm very comfortable with all of those people and consider them some of some of my best friends in life and beyond fantasy football or beyond that podcast. So that helps for sure, of course. Other than that, I would say just trying to be as prepared as possible for whatever the show is, whether it's one that I'm hosting or if I'm a guest on a show, trying to make sure I'm ready for it. I think it becomes pretty obvious to the listener if you're not ready. And I mean, I've been there too. Probably everybody has. If you do podcasts, you do those shows where for whatever reason you just don't feel great about that. And that's no fun either. It's no fun to put out that content that you're not necessarily super proud of. So that helps the nerves. But yeah, in general, it was not something I wanted to do, not something I was looking forward to, or certainly was not confident in. I mean, I remember when Matt Williamson approached me about doing what ultimately became Dynasty Blueprint. He had left his job at ESPN. He had done a daily football podcast with them that, of course, a ton of people listened to, and he wanted to continue podcasting. And he had really just gotten into Dynasty fantasy football at that point, and we had kind of gone back and forth on Twitter and kind of, I wouldn't even say built up a relationship, but at least had some conversations and certainly had a mutual respect for each other. So he approached me and asked me to do that. And of course I was honored by the idea and by the invitation, but it took a few days to think about it because I was, again, just so nervous and uneasy about it. And, just lacking confidence, I guess, but overall it's worked out pretty well.
I think so. And now you gave some advice of what you did for yourself, but now speaking from personal experience, if you told me a year ago, I would have done a weekly waiver wire podcast during the season and now interviewing people one-on-one in the off season, I never would have believed you. I never expected to ever be on a podcast. So do you have any advice for someone that maybe is hesitant to either guest on a podcast or maybe start their own podcast?
Well, first of all, I would say don't be nervous because at this point, almost everybody does it. So give it a shot. Say yes to those invitations. I know I said no to a few early on before Blueprint, before DLF. I said no just because I did have that uneasiness about it. But get yourself out there. Of course, I think the more podcasts you can listen to, the better host or better guest you become. I think the same is true of written content. The more you can read, the better writer you become. I think that's the case. So listen to as much as you can. If you're going to guest or if you're going to start your own, I think that's a good place to start.
Fantastic. Now to completely transition to a different topic.
Okay.
Your family and you love Disney. You try to go there for vacation every year. I actually got to meet you last year when you came down to Disney. Can you share maybe one of your favorite memories from any of those vacations?
Yeah, we've definitely become a Disney family. As much as you can in Kentucky, we get down at least once a year. My wife usually makes it more than that, and obviously, the kids love it, of course. So I'm usually just kind of along for the ride and at their call when it comes to where we're going or what we're doing next or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of memories. I had never been to Disney until I met my wife. And when we were dating, we went. I mean, of course, the first time I ever went to Disney World is a big memory. You see it on TV or commercials or whatever. But walking through those gates and seeing the castle and seeing all the people and everything was pretty cool, even though I was an adult at that point. We honeymooned in Disney and did a Disney cruise. And we've taken our kids, way too many times. So, I mean, the memories with the kids have overtaken those previous memories, of course. Yeah, really just kind of seeing my kids grow up in Disney almost. Again, we only go once or twice a year, but thinking about taking my oldest for the first time when he was not even a year old, and now he's nearly 15 and has been almost 20 times probably. Just kind of thinking about them growing up in Disney. We've gotten the chance to travel to Disney with friends, and in fact with friends in the fantasy football industry. We've been to Disney with Jeff Tiefertiller and his family. Jeff is a writer over at Football Guys. We've been to Disney with my DLF podcast co-host Dan Myler and his family. That was just last year. That was a blast for sure. So the more people you can share those kind of memories with, the better.
That's fantastic. And I don't really talk about it much on the podcast, but I do work at Disney, so that's how we got to meet. And so I have a unique experience compared to you, since I'm a little spoiled by going as much as I do and also working there. But no, I mean, I went as a kid too, so it's great to hear other people's experiences there and find out. That's why I had to wear my Castaway shirt.
I love it,
since we were on the pod today.
I mean, I'm obviously you have a totally different perspective. You're there every day, and it being work versus coming once or twice a year is totally different. But when you're when you're there, if it's a week with your family every year, every couple of years or whatever it might be, like it really does feel like, it almost feels like home when you're able to go somewhat regularly. So it's our place, I guess.
No, it's fantastic. And I mean, when this is coming out, I don't know when there's going to be announcements for Scott Fishbowl 12, but I know there's been talks of potentially live drafts, so maybe we have to look at doing a live draft down at Disney this summer.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, who knows what Scott has planned? I don't even know what he has planned. I know live drafts have been a goal for a while, and obviously, just like so many things, COVID has thrown off those plans. But Scott is hopeful, and where those drafts might be, how many live drafts there might be, who knows? Up to Scott, but it's exciting to potentially see that play out.
That'll be a lot of fun. You got to do the most magical place on earth, right?
That's true. That would be hard to say no to.
There you go. So the fantasy sports space is growing rapidly. You mentioned COVID. I honestly think it's probably because of COVID. A lot of people had more time on their hands. They were home more. So now it's a chance to maybe pursue some passions. Do you have maybe one piece of advice for anyone that's maybe thinking about creating content, or maybe they just got started?
Well, there is so much, and it can be overwhelming. I have seen and heard people say, everything's covered already, right? Or what's one more person going to change, or one more content producer? But I think it's really important to try to find your niche, whatever you're interested in, whatever you feel you're good at. If it's film, if it's analytics, if it's Devi, if it's whatever it might be. I mean, there's a million different little pieces of fantasy football, fantasy sports that someone could be an expert on and could share their advice about. And I know when I was first getting started at DLF, I tried to do it all. I tried to be the Devi guy. I started doing ADP, which I'm still doing, 10 years later. And but I kind of had my hand in so many buckets, and it was just tough. I couldn't keep it up. I found that I was kind of slacking at some, because I tried to take on too much, and I tried to kind of be that. I tried to be the expert at all these different areas, and that's just not realistic. So instead of that, you kind of settle into what you're comfortable with, what you enjoy the most, what you know the most about, and share that piece of information, share that area. Whether it's just on Twitter, or, it's so easy now, right? 10 years ago, had to start your own website, and who really knew how to do that? Or you had to start your own podcast, and who really knew how to do that? But starting a podcast is super easy now. Producing content and posting content. I mean, sites like Patreon or Substack have made that so easy, not only to actually post the content somewhere, but to hopefully get paid for it. Yeah, there's really, if you've got information to share, there's really no excuse for not giving it a shot at this point.
You know, it's true. And I think it's important to find your voice and find what, like you said, quality over quantity, and really just kind of stick with whatever you're passionate about. Otherwise, it's going to come through that you're not really enjoying what you're talking about, or maybe you're not even as knowledgeable as you want to be about what you're talking about because you're spread too thin, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That was the last of my, we'll call them the serious questions, if you will. So I have some rapid fire questions if you're game for that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So you can give as little or as much context to any of these answers as you feel is necessary.
Okay.
So hypothetically, one of the 4 major American sports has to go away forever. So it's baseball, football, basketball, or hockey. Which one's going away forever?
I mean, I guess it's got to be hockey for me. I've never, I'm in Kentucky. There's no ice hockey here. So I've just never really been a fan of it. I'm not sure. In fact, I am sure I've never watched a full hockey game in my life. So that would be it for me.
That's fair. No judgment on the answer, but if you ever get a chance to go to a live game, live hockey is one of the best sports alive.
I have definitely heard that. Yeah, and I feel like I'm letting, I know there are so many diehard hockey fans out there. So yeah, that's a little guilty to say that answer, but that's what I've got to go with.
It's okay. If you said any of those sports, you were going to upset somebody, so it wasn't very fair of me. So this is an interesting one. So what 2 animals would you like to switch the sounds they make?
Oh, wow. Well, I hate birds. I hate birds of all kinds. So that's got to be one of them. If whatever the quietest animal is, I don't know, I guess maybe that's a mouse, right? Like
I thought of a mouse. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll let birds be quiet. I won't hear them. Maybe I won't know they're there. And then I guess if there is a mouse in my house, I will definitely know it's there. It'll give me a loud warning.
I mean, it's pragmatic.
Yeah, it's a practical, and there's probably a lot of other funnier responses, but I'll stick with that one.
No, I like that. It works for you, and it sounds hilarious as well. So if you could spend a day and hang out with any celebrity, dead or alive, who would it be?
I'm not really a big celebrity guy. Like I guess I don't value celebrity status very much. Like I'm not a big autograph guy. I don't really care about getting anyone's autograph or getting pictures with anyone. I mean, if I saw a celebrity, I'm sure you see them wandering around Disney periodically. I mean, I would think that was, I would think that was cool if I saw them, but as far as having some interaction, it's just not my thing. I just honestly don't care. So I think it would be more, I'm trying to think of people that I feel like I might have something in common with, or would be relatable just to have a conversation with and hang out with. I really like Scott Van Pelt on SportsCenter, SVP. I really love him. He's, I consider him a celebrity. I think he's,
I think he is. Yeah.
And with the ESPN Disney connection, I'm sure you've seen him down there at some point.
I have not, no, but.
Oh, have you not seen him? Okay.
No,
all right. Scott Van Pelt would be a good one. Bill Simmons, same thing. I feel like he's into sports, but into pop culture as well. And, I'm a big movie guy, and even like I don't watch wrestling anymore, but I used to. I know he kind of talks about those same things. It just feels like we kind of grew up with similar interests. So yeah, somebody like that probably.
No, that sounds like a fun day. I like it. If you could time travel, would you travel to the past or travel to the future?
I guess I'd travel to the future. Just to get an idea of what's coming, get that sports almanac, right? Come back and change things. I don't know. I feel like I'd rather see what's in store for us.
No, I like that. And yeah, it could be very lucrative in DFS.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There you go. And then my last one for you. So we've already covered you're a big Disney fan. So would you
Yep.
rather drink around the world at Epcot or go on Rise of the Resistance without having to wait in line?
Oh, yeah. The Rise is awesome. We got to ride it one time the last time we were there, but yeah, the wait is tough. I'm not really a huge I'm not a huge drinker in general, so I'd probably pick Rise, but again, I'm thinking about the company, who I'm with. If I'm with some of those DLF buddies like I mentioned, maybe I would go with drinking around Epcot and just having that experience. But if it's just me and the family, we're definitely going for Rise.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I still actually haven't been on Rise of the Resistance yet. I need to go on at some point. But I have been around the world at Epcot. I think we lost you, Ryan. All right. Well, if Ryan gets back here, we'll sign him off. But that was my last question. So if you are listening to this on the podcast, make sure you go ahead and follow or subscribe to whatever platform you listen to. And if you are on YouTube, did we get you back, Ryan?
There we go.
Awesome. Sorry, we lost you for a minute. So
Yeah,
that was my last question.
We've got some storms rolling in, so
No
bad
worries.
timing on my part here.
No worries. I understand. Well, that was my last question. So do you want to share where everyone can find all of your great content and where they can connect with you?
Sure. Thanks again for having me on, Zach. Always fun to have these kind of conversations for sure. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. You can find all of my written work at dynastyleaguefootball.com. And also check out the podcast that I'm a part of, DLF Dynasty Podcast, Locked On Dynasty, and Commission Impossible. And yeah, I think that's it.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing so much about yourself on here. So this is Triple Play Fantasy. Like I said, if you're listening on a podcast, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. We appreciate it. It helps us a lot. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and like the video. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put out a lot of content this offseason, and it's Triple Play Fantasy. So we're covering football, baseball, basketball. So we don't want you to miss any of that great content. So I appreciate you guys listening, and we'll look forward to you guys next episode. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thanks, Zach.